How long have you been at Coastline?
So I've been here 20 years. Started originally as, I came in to look after the repairs contract with an external repairs organisation as a contractor.
You're head of innovation,
Yeah.
maintenance,
Yeah.
group procurement. So what's your main focus in your new role?
The primary focus is making the repairs and maintenance service the best it can be. And that fits quite well with the innovation side, as I said just now about the sort of the package delivery service. I have that mindset. I'm quite open to technologies. So really keen that we use the systems to their maximum to make sure that customers get the right service very quickly. So that fits really quite well with the repairs and maintenance sort of side. The group procurement is slightly different in that I've always been responsible for some procurement, and I'm just now sort of using those skills, if you like, across parts of the business that I didn't look at before. So things like utilities, and in amongst the innovation side, I'm also looking at our carbon footprint. I know that our stock is quite good, so we've got very few properties that are sat band D or worse, very few. And some time ago, I suppose at the time it was moderately controversial, but I set a target in agreement with our board that none of our customers' homes would cost more than £600 to heat. And I don't think many organisations have stuck their neck out at that point. That's around 4.5 years ago, I think now. Might be slightly longer. And we're sort of there. We're pretty well there. That means we dispose of some stock, some properties that we couldn't ever bring back around to that without sort of significant investment. But that's quite a good way of looking at disposals, really, is that we're actually creating another marketplace for people who may not have been able to afford certain properties, can buy one of our sort of older stock that we didn't want to keep. And quite often those properties are sort of in areas where they're not on the main bus routes. You need sort of transport, to be able to get to and from them. They're not necessarily on gas. Heating costs can be quite high, particularly when oil prices were higher. So we're looking at that side of the business. I've got quite a lot of sort of skills and a lot of knowledge which I can share back across. And one of the things with the innovation side and the carbon footprint is I'm very, very keen with the procurement to start looking at how we embed sustainability and environmental impact into our procurement process.
How has COVID impacted Coastline?
COVID was quite difficult, and I think it was for most organisations. I would say that Coastline were quite well prepared, and we have a very close-knit sort of senior leadership team who aren't sort of averse to making decisions, which is a really good place to be. So we had the technology, we'd already sort of implemented mobile working with a lot of our staff. So we already had a lot of background systems ready to go. Some sort of minor issues around whether whether staff could actually use the systems at home. Obviously some broadband issues. We've experienced some specific suppliers who in this area had broadband issues, which is fine. But we've found, I think, our main focus again shifted onto customers and their well-being. So we stopped repairs, except emergencies. We did do some urgent repairs in certain circumstances, and we looked at changing some things. So just around, we did a quick bit of training with some of the staff around signs of domestic violence and making sure that those were dealt with immediately. Rather than being referred to somebody to make a decision, we just said if that's the feel of that area, and then we just need to get those done really quickly and make properties secure, make sure people are safe. But a lot of our workforce, so the actual operatives on the ground, were out delivering food packages and being really helpful with customers and making sure that people were safe. We used our vulnerable lists, and then we were making telephone calls, trying to see how we could help people, right down to we got a hardship fund that we put in place almost immediately. So we've helped some people with oil costs for oil heating where we do have oil. We've also looked at electric meters and helped people with the utilities. We've helped people with food packages. We've also looked at, we have a very specific customer who came to us with some difficulties around mobility. So that meant that even in lockdown, although they were probably quite sort of restricted in their general sort of access, they used to have lots of visitors. and those visitors were taken away through lockdown. So we used the hardship fund to buy them broadband, which I don't think that many people would consider organisations, but that's what we did. She's found it very, very beneficial. It meant she keep in contact with all those people she needed to. And it was a genuine hardship case, but actually broadband was probably as important to her as any other service. And it was just really, when it came through, we had a quick look at it and said, actually, it's the right thing to do. So it's been a really interesting journey. But I think, headed up with, a very good chief exec and a senior leadership team who think very much as one and are very sort of aligned. I think that's really helpful. It wasn't really about anything ever being controversial. It was about how do we get this stuff done and which bit are we going to do first. And we made those decisions pretty quickly. And we meet 2 or 3 times a week every week, and we have done throughout.
It's on the well-being for your residents and I guess your staff as well, of course. How important is that?
Yeah, very important. We've done some work. I had a project probably about 5 or 6 years ago, which is all around health and well-being. We work with the University of Exeter and a gentleman who's called Dr. Richard Sharp now, and he was basically on his degree was looking at the mould in people's homes and trying to work out why it's there, what type is there, how it could be eradicated. And he did a lot of work with us and informed us. And it was really interesting because one of the things that we noticed was he could get into properties sometimes easier than we could because that was his interest was, so what is this problem you've got in your home? Let me see, and I'll be an expert on this at some point. And he is now, absolute expert. But it's interesting if you use sort of the right people, the right experts for the right sort of projects, that they don't really look at the baggage that we all have because of our basic experience and our life experience and sort of in work. So he came back with all sorts of recommendations and certain properties that we had to have different ventilation systems fitted into, and some were lifestyle. And he was really really honest about that. And he just said, I don't think anyone can fix that one until the lifestyle changes slightly. But that was good because it gave us some sort of substance, and it gave us very direct targets, really, sort of individuals or families that we could go and support to try and help them. And he wrote quite a number of papers around sort of the links between housing, poor housing, the internal environment, and asthma, health and well-being. And he's quite well known for that sort of aspect now. He's very skilled, he strangely still works with us on another project, although he's moved from the University of Exeter to Cornwall Council. But he's in the health and wellbeing sort of sector still, and he's working on us on our other project, which is the Smartline project. Smartline's it's about 300 homes in total, and now we've got some other properties where the customers will engage in Smartline, but not necessarily have the sensors in the homes. And we're looking at temperature, humidity, the air quality in their home, and then looking at interventions, so things that we can put in place to make that better and improve their home living. And the beauty of the sensors has been really that we can see the improvement.
Just so that I've got it right, Smartline is a collaboration between you and some.
Yeah, so it's
Exeter.
It's actually headed up by University of Exeter, and I wrote some documents around Smartline probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and I sort of had a bit of a frustration really with them. I always say it was the car industry that every car had a digital this, digital that, and you could have USB ports and there were all sorts of things going on in cars, and a lot of appliances didn't have that technology, I find it slightly frustrating. And I started then talking and looking at different aspects of how you can predict issues in homes and perhaps get in early and try to help them out. The example I tend to use is we had some evidence of customers who turned their heating off on Wednesdays, which is quite interesting. It was Wednesdays and Thursdays. So that came sort of a bit of a shock, and also it's really not good for them, and it's really not good for the property itself, the actual bricks and sticks of the house. So we need to sort of understand why that was. And generally we found that those people are weekly paid. They tend to be cash paid. or they have a payment of some sort on the Saturday maybe. And generally they couldn't quite afford to get to the end of the week with their incoming versus their outgoings. So the heating was the thing that they would turn off. The Smartline sort of innovation side really is looking a little bit deeper and saying that actually we've had a look at the property, we've had a look at the property details, we understand it's SAP, it's a thermal efficiency. And if you were, because we can see how you're heating the home, if you were to turn it down by a degree or two, that would be enough saving that you could get to the end of the week. And that would be a really good message to be able to give somebody and say, actually, you don't have to turn the heating up early in the week. You can just keep it at the same level all the week and it should get there. So there's lots of sort of questions that it posed, but it sort of flagged up quite a few anomalies and some things around sort of, I would like to see broadband there in every single home, whether it's used or not. It should be part of the tenancy, and I think that should just happen. And the reason I say that is because it's really hard, isn't it, to move an organisation along if you can't take your customers with you in an easy way. And I think it is about ease. It's the simplicity of not having customers having to buy their own broadband and try to work out which scheme they should go on and why. And so I think broadband would be the challenge. I think that's on our doorstep now. We're all moving to digital ways of communicating, and our customers quite a lot can't afford broadband. It's a luxury. So I'd like to see that normalised. So it seems like there's a bit of an injustice that customers who can't or don't see broadband as a necessity also miss out on all the other opportunities that those who do have broadband or sacrifice something else for broadband. So that just feels for me like an injustice, and I think that that could be fixed very quickly. But actually, it will make those people not necessarily wealthy, but certainly have something more in their pocket to be able to enjoy life and do the things they want to do.
More or less done. I mean, it just reminds me, thanks very much for your time, Mark.